What if one single country controlled the money the entire world depended on? And I don't just mean its own local banks. I'm talking about global trade, oil, international debt, and even war. While that's reality today, almost every nation on Earth uses the US dollar to buy oil and protect their wealth. If countries want to trade, the dollar sits squarely in the middle. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the emerging coalition of countries that are actively trying to break that exact system.
But hey, really quickly, before we trace this massive financial shift, take just a second to hit subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. We create these explainers to decode the hidden systems shaping geopolitics, economics, and the future of global power. You definitely won't want to miss what we've got coming up next.
To really grasp why countries want to replace the dollar, we have to look back at how America built this system in the first place. Coming out of World War II, the US emerged as the undisputed strongest economy. So, in 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, a brand new world order was created, where global trade was centered around the dollar, which was, at the time, backed by gold. Now, even when the US abandoned that gold standard in 1971, the dollar survived. Why? Well, it's all about the petrodollar. The US made strategic deals ensuring global oil would be sold exclusively in dollars. Basically, if you needed oil to run your country, you absolutely needed American banks.
Over time, the dollar evolved into something much bigger. It became more than just paper money in a wallet. It literally became the world's financial infrastructure. Today, most international trade, central bank reserves, and the SWIFT banking system heavily rely on US Treasury bonds. Now, this grants the United States extraordinary, unparalleled leverage. But, as you can probably imagine, this immense power also breeds a lot of global resentment, because Washington can essentially punish nations simply by cutting them out of this very infrastructure.
So this dual reality really shapes our current geopolitical landscape. On one hand, you have the traditional dollar, right? It functions as this super stable infrastructure for global trade. But on the other hand, we see what analysts call the weaponized dollar. For decades now, the US has used financial sanctions as a major geopolitical tool. Countries like Iran and Venezuela have faced severe restrictions that completely block their access to dollar transactions and global banking.
But the real turning point, that arrived in 2022. Following the invasion of Ukraine, Western nations launched a completely unprecedented financial offensive. Russian banks were instantly cut from the SWIFT network, their foreign reserves were frozen solid, and billions of dollars were made inaccessible almost overnight. To governments watching worldwide, this sent a chilling, unmistakable message. If your economy depends on the dollar, America has the power to just shut it down in an instant.
So the crucial point is that this exact fear accelerated a massive global movement known as de-dollarization. Suddenly, governments all over the globe started asking some pretty dangerous questions, like what if tensions rise with Washington? Is relying on the dollar actually a massive national security risk for us? Ultimately, de-dollarization is this slow but steadily growing attempt by global governments to bypass Washington's control entirely.
And the biggest players driving this resistance? That would be the BRICS nations. Originally standing for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, this coalition represents an absolutely massive share of the world's population and natural resources. They are rapidly becoming a serious political counterweight to Western dominance. And the thing is, they're already taking action. China and Russia have actually begun trading in their own currencies, while India is actively exploring trade agreements based entirely on the rupee.
But listen to this, their ambitions go way beyond just using local money. The ultimate goal here is a multipolar financial world, one where no single country controls global trade. BRICS has even floated the massive idea of creating a shared financial mechanism, potentially backed by commodities like gold, to completely, 100% bypass the US dollar.
Now, let's be real for a second. Replacing the dollar is not simple. The US dollar's reality is built on deep historic trust. Global investors trust US markets, and businesses trust the stability of dollar transactions. Contrast that with the obstacles BRICS is facing right now. Creating a true alternative faces massive hurdles. You've got competing interests, fragile trust among members, and major ongoing border disputes between heavyweights like China and India. Building a unified alternative to the dollar could realistically take decades.
But BRICS isn't just sitting around waiting. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the parallel revolution happening right now under our noses. The CBDC, or central bank digital currency. It's super important to distinguish this from volatile cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. CBDCs are digital money controlled directly by governments and central banks. Imagine money moving instantly across borders, completely bypassing American banks and the traditional SWIFT system altogether.
And this concept has sparked a full-on global race for digital innovations. Just look at this breakdown. China is leading the charge with its digital yuan and a brand new alternative payment network called CIPS, which is designed specifically to reduce reliance on SWIFT. Meanwhile, Russia has significantly accelerated its digital ruble project, and India has officially launched the digital rupee. Guys, these aren't just fun little experiments. They are active, alternative technological networks being built right now.
So why does all of this actually matter to you and the global economy? Because the 21st century empire is all about controlling the rails of finance. Think about it. In the 20th century, empires controlled physical oceans and oil routes. Today, they control payment networks and digital code. If countries can successfully trade using digital systems entirely outside the dollar ecosystem, America's financial leverage could be severely weakened.
And there's another massive factor pushing this transformation from the inside out: tens of trillions of dollars. That staggering number represents America's exploding national debt. Because the dollar is the world's reserve currency, the U.S. has historically been able to borrow enormous amounts of money. But as this debt skyrockets into the tens of trillions, foreign governments are beginning to seriously worry about inflation and long-term stability. And what are they doing? They're quietly diversifying their reserves by buying up huge amounts of gold. And this brilliantly illustrates why they are so worried. Look at the history here. In the 17th century, the Dutch guilder completely dominated global trade. In the 19th century, it was the British pound. In the 20th century, the US dollar took over. History proves over and over that no reserve currency lasts forever. Empires rise, and eventually they decline. This historical reality is exactly why longtime US partners and rival nations alike are actively exploring backup options. But hey, despite all this pressure, a complete collapse of the dollar isn't happening tomorrow morning. The US still boasts the world's largest economy and the deepest financial markets. When global panics hit, investors still rush straight toward the safety of the dollar. The alternatives, meanwhile, remain pretty weak in comparison. China's yuan is tightly government-controlled, Russia's ruble is largely isolated by sanctions, and crypto, well, it's simply too volatile for global trade right now.
So, what's the most likely outcome here? Well, the future will likely become much more fragmented, a world where multiple financial systems actually coexist side by side. Instead of a sudden, dramatic crash where one currency just replaces another overnight, we're looking at a gradual tectonic shift. Regional currencies will gain influence, digital payment networks will expand, the dollar will absolutely remain incredibly powerful, but it will no longer be completely unchallenged. Make no mistake, we are entering the next financial Cold War. Only this time it won't be fought with missiles or tanks, but with currencies, code, and control over the rails of global finance. Changing economic systems inevitably lead to shifting political alliances. Rival nations are building these alternatives not because they think they can destroy the dollar tomorrow, but because they simply no longer want to depend on it forever.
I want to end this explainer with a provocative question for all of you. Do you think the US dollar will remain dominant, or are we witnessing the true beginning of a new financial world order? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would absolutely love to read your perspective on this. And if you enjoyed this explainer, please remember to hit subscribe and turn on those notifications for more deep dives into the hidden forces shaping our future. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.